While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but for the passion to help others. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, those that keep the prisons secure, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler, host of the LEO Podcast. And guys, we have a pretty good guest on tonight. He's actually lives in the same city I live in, and it's not too often that I have the opportunity to speak with fellow law enforcement officers in the city of Beaumont. So for me, this is a very special episode in a sense of it's talking to someone from the home area. Now, I'm not from Beaumont, but I've been living here long enough to pretty much call it home. So for me, it gives me an opportunity to build our community here, because in smaller communities like Beaumont, we're not the smallest, but sometimes it gets overshadowed by the Houstons, the Dallases, the LAs, the New Yorks, all those big cities. But every city, I promise you, has its own characteristics that are positive, and Beaumont definitely suits that profile. So tonight, once again, we have a great guest on tonight, and I know based on some of the things he's been doing, he's going to really show you guys and tell you guys how his life experiences has brought him to where he's at today. And recently I saw he got an award, and that's what made me remember. I was like, oh crap, I haven't invited him on the show in a while. So I was like, let me find a way to bring him on, and he agreed. And tonight is a night that we have the opportunity and the privilege to hear from a person that's making an impact daily in law enforcement. Tonight, our guest is Chris Bates. Chris, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I want to first just thank you, Mike, for letting me come on the podcast. I see you doing some great things also in the community, man, and just getting information out to people. So I appreciate the opportunity. But I tell everybody all the time, man, I'm Chris Bates. I'm Chris all day long, man. I'm the Constable Precinct 2 of Jefferson County. That's why I've been serving since 2013. But the way I lead, the way that I humble myself is that I'm Chris. And so that's one of the things I just remain humble to. But, man, I'm actually born and raised in Port Arthur. Now, Port Arthur is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Beaumont.
It is.
My precinct is actually still in Port Arthur, which is Jefferson County. Was Port Arthur, Beaumont, Needham, Port Nature's Groves, China Nome, and Finette. And so I have been in this city again all my life, man. I went to schools here in Port Arthur ISD, went to college here at Lamar University for my bachelor's degree, and went to the police academy here at LIT, Lamar Institute of Technology, all back in 2008. And so this area is home for me. A lot of people ask, man, are you going to leave? Are you going to go anywhere? I'm like, no, I'll go and visit and travel, man. But for the most part, this is home for me. And so I just decided to make a career here there after college. And law enforcement kind of snuck up on me, so to speak. And so this is my 15th year in law enforcement. Time flies when you're having fun. And but I love it, man. And I especially love this role as constable that I've been serving now for the last 10 years. And hopefully the people will have me to serve many more terms if I'm doing the right thing. And so, again, this role of constable it's a little different than your normal law enforcement position, and but I made it a way to make it work for me and then work for the community. And so that's what I'm definitely proud of, man. So that's where we at, man. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get into some more stuff later down the line, but that's Chris in a nutshell.
Well, Chris, it's pretty cool because when I hear some of your story, and sometimes it's hard for us to unpack it through social media or in other types of presentations, but you said something that I think's been that's different from a lot of other guests I've had, and you said law enforcement kind of snuck up on you. So when you say that, what does that mean to Chris that it snuck up on you?
So I'll tell people every time I go and I have an opportunity to tell my stories that, um, sometimes people grow up and wanting to be police officers and wanted to, have a family of police officers and this, that, and the other. But man, it wasn't my first choice actually. I grew up wanting to be a elementary school teacher.
Wow.
Um, I I went to school. I always told my mom I was going to be a teacher, and actually, and I was pretty good at music, vocal, and so I actually went to college at Lamar University on a choir scholarship, the a cappella choir, and I was a music major. I was a vocal music major with an emphasis in music education, and that was my major when I was at Lamar University. We sung all over the world, actually traveling, um, and it was a great experience. But and a lot of people don't know. I mean, people that know me know that I sing home, but when I meet people across the way, they don't necessarily know the background of my music, and so I'm still into my music. I'm still richly and deeply eroded in my music. But it was basically snuck up on me because I was going to school again to be a teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
I met some friends. I had a friend that actually was working in security at a football game, and me and two other friends, he was telling us how good the job was, how the benefits were good, how you could make so much working all these extra jobs.
Talking
I'm
it
like, man,
up.
I'm trying money. And so he was like, man, there's a police test coming up. Y'all should go and take the test and see what happens. So I was like, okay, me and my two other friends, we signed up for the test. And we went there Saturday, Port Arthur Police Department, and we took the written test. And I always tell this story, even when my two friends are there, I said, I passed and they failed. And it was
You let them know that.
it was probably the best thing for them. They good guys, but man, police work ain't for everybody, and it's definitely not for those two guys. I love them though, but yeah, I passed the test, man, and passed all the background, took that obstacle course, and passed all that stuff, and I got a call from the chief of police at that time was Mark Blanton. I don't know if you remember Chief Mark Blanton.
Mm-mm.
He retired from the police department, Port Arthur Police Department, about 5 years ago, and he offered me a position. And in my head, I was like, "Yes, sir." But in the back of my head, I was like, "Man, what am I doing?" Because it was something that was new to me. It was foreign to me, so to speak. But I always felt like I could do the job. I always, my temperament is always mild. I'm always cool and laid back. I'm gonna get the job done. But um, I felt like I could do the job, and so I just went along with it, man. I went to the police academy and everything, and passed everything, and passed my test and whatnot. And I actually, because I was so far along in my education at Lamar, I I decided to make sure that I finished my bachelor's degree online. So I graduated from the Police Academy at LIT on a Friday in 2008, and then the very next day I graduated from Lamar University with my bachelor's degree on a Saturday.
Wow.
And so um, it was a little tough going to the Police Academy, which is full throttle, and then also taking some online classes. But I made it happen and I made it work. And so again, it wasn't my first, profession that in my head that I wanted to do, but it's a job. It's a job that I have come to love, and I love doing it.
And it's cool that you understand that this wasn't your first calling. However, over the last 15 years, it's not like you just slept on it either, because you've done a lot in your career in the 15-year period. And that's what really highlights that you're not a second generation or third generation police officer. You weren't even in high school or college. Hey, this is what I want to do. Like you said, you heard from it during a sports event that you're like, you know what? There's good pay and benefits. Let me try this
Yep.
out. So it's kind of cool because some people they think that they have to already be truly invested in this career decades ahead of time.
Yeah. I mean, you don't, man. It's um, again, you have to find something that you love to do. And I tell people all the time, if you're working somewhere, make sure you love to do your job. Make sure that you're gonna have your days when you get up and you don't feel like going to work. I mean, that's everybody. But for the most part, you gotta be passionate about what you're doing. And so that's why I love this job. It's different in every day. You hear police officers say it all the time. It's something different every day, and it very much is. Even from the constable side, and I know we'll get into that later on, because the number one question I get asked all the time is, "What does a constable do?" So I know you're gonna ask that question, but but it's something that if you have the temperament for it, and a lot of times people want to make a difference in their community, and they don't know how, or they're looking at different things that happen throughout our nation on social on the media, and they're like, "How do I make a difference?" And so, if you truly want to make a difference and you truly have the heart and the passion for it, I invite anybody to come and do this job if you are ready for the responsibility and if you have a love for people. Now, if you don't have a love for people and you don't have patience, then this is not the job for you. I can tell you right now. So do us a favor and pick something else. but if you love people and you have patience, man, this is a good job for you.
And you make a good point, because it's not all about the money. Obviously, it's not the highest paying job. The benefits are great. I will tell you that they definitely compete to even higher end jobs, so to speak. So I know the benefits are great in all law enforcement, whether you're a constable, deputy sheriff, a police officer, correctional officer, you work in the federal government, whatever it might be. Usually the benefits is where you win. But if you're not ready for this field, this is not for you.
No, not at all, man. Not at all. And so, um, like I said, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different jobs out there. And I tell people, even people that's getting to the academy, I say, man, if you try it out, if you get through all, you pass the test and everything, and then you just feel like one day, like, this really not for me, I promise you it's okay. Nobody's going to talk about you. Nobody's going to, none of that stuff, because everyone in law enforcement knows this is a difficult job to do. And so if you find out that it's not something that you really want to do, that's okay. But like you said, it's something for a special person, I would say.
So for you, and the fact that this wasn't your first choice initially as you were entering into your early adult years, how did your family transition into this career?
Man, it was funny when I told my mom and my dad and my siblings. I'm the oldest of six, and I think everybody was home except my middle brother. He was in the Navy, and it wasn't. The thing about it was, when I told them I was going to be a police officer, they really weren't surprised, because they know how my characteristics are, and they were like, okay, I can see you being a cop. And and so it kind of rolled with it. I've always had support. One of the big things that I just um, thought going into it, that I was is going to be a lot of issues, so to speak, maybe because I'm policing. I'm from Port Arthur, and I'm policing
Mm-hmm.
in the city of Port Arthur. But I come to find out that most people, 9 times out of 10, people know when they're doing wrong. Trust me, they know. And so if I had, and I've interacted with friends, family, people that I knew well, in law enforcement, and every single time, man, they'd be like, you know what, Bates, I know you're just doing your job, man. You're a good dude, but you're just doing your job. And so where I thought it was going to be an issue with me, working in the city that I was from, it really hasn't. It's been very beneficial, because I've been able to help solve crimes, because I have a relationship with people, or get information that another officer would not have gotten, just because I'm from the city and I know quite a few people here. So it's worked out, not only in my benefit, but just the benefit of the community, so that we can keep it safe.
It's interesting you say that, like most things you've said up to this point. But one word you didn't use, which I think you've had even before going into law enforcement, was respect. You had the respect of your family, which you eventually had respect of the community. And I think you're right, because it doesn't really matter where you're from. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're treating people the right way, they know what they're doing is not right.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like you're showing up to the scene and you're just like, they're like, oh, we can't believe he's here. Well, if you're violating the law, I'm going to be here. Like, I think that's what's helped you out, is because you already had that level of respect. And like you said, when they saw you, they're like, hey, all right, here comes Bates. Well, we know we did X, Y, and Z. I mean, he's going to do what he has to do because this is who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And it's, like I said, people, they know the situation they in. And then the other part for me is that I treat them, regardless, and I'm handcuffing folks, I treat them with respect, So and I talk, just to talk to them, and I let them know, man, listen, this is just a bump in the road. And so, at this point, unfortunately, this is something that you've been, through the penal code, I've been, found, not necessarily found guilty of, but meets the elements of whatever crime it was. But I said, man, I'm not perfect. I used to tell people this when I was driving to jail. I'm like, I'm not perfect, man. I mess up every day, man. And so, but there's some things that we can do to stay out of, the penal system or whatnot. And I just try to encourage folks, and just kind of help them out in that same instance, So, because at the end of the day, man, no one is perfect, man. We all make somebody else's mistake. I may be doing something else. And so that's how I look at it. So I can make sure that I'm always respecting people.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it should be. We all make mistakes. We all have things going on. And when we forget that we're humans in and out of that uniform, I think that's where both sides go wrong, because I think sometimes people in uniform forget that they're human and they're dealing with humans. And then when people deal with law enforcement, they forget that, you know what, this is a human that puts on the uniform.
Right. and I tell people, man, and some people, and I think this is where we're at in trying to understand each other, even in this community, even today, is that people have a perception of what officers. And don't get me wrong, we have, because of the laws that we follow and that we have to implement. I mean, the officer does have some power to take civil liberties away from individuals based upon what's been set aside by Congress and state laws. But at the same time, um, we're also held by those same standards as well. And then also we're just we put this uniform on, and we're servants for the people, and we're trying to do a good job. And so I think people sometimes think that we're supermen or superheroes, or someone different. But man, once this whether this uniform is off or on, man, we just, for me, I'm just squishy and fluffy underneath this uniform, and so I'm still a human, man.
and it's good. I mean, but it's good for people to understand that. And it's, when I was a rookie officer back in the day, I used to thought I didn't really think I was invincible, but things that happened to me didn't faze me as much, or at least I didn't think they did. Now, just if I got in a foot pursuit, I know my hamstring's going to be acting funny. My knees are going to be screaming at me later. My back's going to be like, don't get back up. So, but it's because we're human. Like, we're not invincible.
Not at all, man. And so you're right. When you as a rookie and you're seeing all this and it's all new to you, you do feel that way. And even in my rookie year, man, I can remember I used to be this guy since I was, again, born and raised in Port Arthur. I used to be this guy to say, you know what, man, I'm from Port Arthur, man. I know everything that happens in Port Arthur, man. I'm trill. Port Arthur, we trill, So you said we speaking candidly, so I'm gonna speak candidly. So we trill in Port Arthur, that and the other. And so, man, I got on a graveyard shift, and I was like, I don't know my city like I thought I knew my city. It's different. It's different. It's different when you put the badge on, but it's really different when you work in graveyards. And so you see some stuff, and I learned that, man, I don't know everything about my city. And there's some things that there's some good things, and then there's some bad things. But I think just talking to friends across the state, man, is that everyone gets a eye opener when if they're policing in their own city, and then they start working, they start seeing the other side of it. Because I tell people all the time, man, a lot of you guys, y'all are oblivious to what's going on around you. You know, you just get up, you get in a routine, you just get up, you go to work, you know, kids, this, that, another, man. But there's so many things around you. And I even have to tell my friends and my family, even my wife, man, just be aware of your surroundings because you just never know what's happening around you. And so, unfortunately, we see a lot of that doing this job, you know, almost every day or daily. Or even if we, you know, I don't, and I'm not tied to the radio like I was on patrol, but I still have friends. We still get emails and different things that letting us know what's going on. And so I just ask, you know, I tell people just protect themselves because you just never know what's happening, you know?
Yeah, and it's good and bad. It's good because I'm happy that some of my family does not know what's going on around us. Sometime that being oblivious to some of the situations that
Yeah.
are going on is a good thing. But then the downside is you're right. You should probably watch your back a little bit more. You might want to not keep your door open. You may not want to keep your car running when you go into the gas station
Yeah.
because from the law enforcement side, you see all the things that can happen and will
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. And people, I mean, just to piggyback off that, people still to this day leave that car running and go in the gas station, man. They stealing cars left and right. I'm like, why are you leaving that car on? But anyways,
I was just at
people,
Marble Slab over the weekend. I saw the same thing. Mind you, the guy parked right in front of Marble Slab, but I was thinking in my head, I was like, this is why they made tickets. Like I could have literally, like I was standing in front of his car. He didn't know me from the next person. He got out, went inside, just getting an ice cream and just let the car running, like literally right in front of me. I was like, really? Like, so if I take your car, you're gonna be mad at me.
you're
Like,
gonna be mad at me. Yeah, but you left your car running, so you know.
yeah.
Uh, but it's you're right. It's a good and a bad side to it, man. But and it's not to scare people and thinking that they have to just live in a bubble or you know always just be paranoid. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying just protect yourself. And I think at the minimum effort, you know, just keep all that stuff in mind. Some people really go to the extreme with, you know, the way that they protect themselves or even sometimes the paranoia. And I'm not saying that I want people to live their lives to live it to the best because there's so many great things that people can do is travel and everything. But even in that, you know, and I think my wife, she's you know, since we've been together, she's more heightened to some things. You know, when we travel out of the country, you know, I can see her doing stuff that, you know, she's just picked up on me doing. You know, and
Yeah.
so the more you're around it, she probably won't even know it, but she's, you know, just because she's around it long and she knows some things that I do, she just probably does it automatically. You know, and I just want people to have that protection as a second sense. You know, they do it, but they really don't even know they're doing, but they know that they're being protected in what they do.
And it's interesting. So when you take that concept and you're thinking about protecting your family, you're thinking about like how you're telling people what's going on. How does that relate to how you're handling the community? And I know you're involved in a lot of different events around Beaumont and Port Arthur and just Jefferson County in general.
Mhm.
What are some of the things that you have found yourself able to elevate people through just by getting involved in different community events?
So one of the things that I found that um, that people really want is to trust. They
Mm,
want that certain officer that they can trust, and so I found that out during Hurricane Harvey for sure, and then we had I think Hurricane Laura and Delta that came in 2020, and I was just basically sharing information that I received, you know, from my weather updates, whatnot, and stuff that you know people getting media and getting news from different places nowadays. And so I found out I was just sharing information so people can be informed because I know people stay on social media, especially Facebook. You know, they get most of their news from that, man. And I was just sharing information, and man, I got so much response from just people just being appreciative or people not knowing this was going on, and people sharing a post almost 1,000 times,
wow.
and it because it was not only was it good information, but it came from a trustworthy source. Because there's a lot of information that comes from people that just making up stuff, and I
True.
made that note like, hey, y'all, I'm not gonna sell you a whoop ticket. So if I
Good.
put it out there, I've verified it and whatnot. And so I found that people really like good information, especially during disasters, even the pandemic, putting out information and letting people know they appreciated that. And so that's why communication for me is always key in what I do in this job. And then I take that communication and those skills into some of the programs that I've been able to do throughout the community.
So, what are some of these programs you've been able to build up in this area?
Man, so back in 2015, so again, I took office in 2013, and I just wanted to be able to make a difference, um, and make sure that my focus really was young people, and then some are what I call seasoned citizens, some are wiser generation. And so what I started, my first endeavor was a scholarship, and the scholarship program started in 2015. I just started it with $500 of my own money. I get asked all the time, man, how do you start a scholarship program? I said, take money out your pocket and give it to a student. That's how you start a scholarship program.
Easy enough.
You just got to be able to want to do it. And so I started that program in 2015 to try to help bridge that gap. And I know it's kind of cliche and people hear bridge the gap between communities and young people, but it's something that is really true and near to my heart. And so the scholarship that I created was for a high school senior going into the field of criminal justice, help mentor them, help them financially, because we all know that college is not cheap. And so I started that program in 2015, and to date, well, we've been able to give out a whole lot of money through a. I've been helping out for the past several years. I've started a scholarship breakfast, and this is kind of helping me, raise the money for the scholarship fund. And let's see, in May is when I gave out this last scholarships, and it's over $30,000 that we've been able to give out to young people going into the field of going to college. Some of them changed their major, which is cool because I changed my major a few times, so I don't hold it against anybody. But initially, if they want to go to school for criminal justice and they meet the qualifications, they've all each student has been getting $1,000 scholarships, and like I said, over 30,000 so far has been given out.
And the interesting part, and I know I say interesting a lot because it always is that the fact that you're just giving money to get people into school that's the primary goal. The secondary goal is their major. The third one is just getting a job at some point. But the fact that you're finding ways to get them in college, everybody has their different views about college. I mean, I have a master's degree, and I want my son to eventually go to college when he graduates. He's only 10. We got time. But what you learn in college does help elevate you in the workplace. And
Absolutely.
I think sometimes people miss that part of it. They're like, well, I don't need to go to college to open a business. You don't need to, but it would really help out. You don't need to go to college to be a police officer, to be a deputy sheriff, to be a constable. However, you're going to add more value to that agency that you're working for because you have that education.
Absolutely, man. And so, again, I was a stickler. Again, like I said, I'm the oldest, and so I try to lead by example. And I got my bachelor's, I got my master's in 2017, and but honestly, my two brothers that's behind me, man, they both when they first graduated high school, they tried the college, and in college didn't work out for them. They didn't have the discipline that they have now. And the discipline that they have now is because they went to the military. They both went to the Navy
Okay.
and received that discipline that they needed. And they did some years in the Navy, and then they actually went back to school and had it paid for. and now they have the discipline. They had the discipline to get their scholar their degrees. And so I tell people all the time, college isn't for everyone. Um, but try it out and see how it is. It may not be the right time. I know people go, but just educating yourself is what is what I like about just, whether education is coming from a college or, a work experience or a master class or whatever. Man, there's so many different ways to learn and always be learning. And so, um, I, I promised my mom that I was going to get my master's degree, and that's what I did. You know, every now and again, I have the inkling to go and get my doctorates, but I realize now that where I feel like I may be going in the future, me racking up some more student loans is not gonna cut it. So I probably master's degree is probably gonna be it. I don't want to rack up any more student loans unless they gonna forgive them. Are
But you're right. Hey, but it's 100% right. I was going to ask you when are we going to hear the Dr. Bates story come out? But sometimes you're right, but money is a factor, and you do have to consider that. You have to consider your family, your kids, like other things you have going on, and the fact that you got a bachelor's degree, you got a master's degree, are big strides in at least pushing something. Now, I'm in the same boat. I'm looking at the doctor's degree, thinking about how it'll work with my lifestyle, how it's going to work with the finances, and it took me a while to kind of get my brain wrapped around it, but I think next year I'm going to push for it. And that's just because I think in my mind, I need it. 10 years ago, I didn't need it. I didn't need a master's degree 10 years ago. I got one because my buddy who's a professor said, hey, you should get a master's degree. So he kind of talked me into it.
Gotcha.
And my sister had one. So I had to keep up with her, but I figured I get my doctorate before she gets hers because we're just at different parts of life. So I'm like, you know what? This is my chance to get the next elevated level of education over her. So we'll see. It's kind of the competitive sibling side, but you're right.
Gotcha.
That is a factor, is knowing when to go get education. Like you said, your brothers tried it out. They was like, this isn't for us. Let's go to the armed forces. You know what? Now we're going to get the GI Bill to pay for it. And the other bills that come with it. But that was smart. They didn't just do something that they weren't into. And then they realized something they were into and came back to it. So they handled it perfectly.
Right. And no, just dealing with my brothers, other family members, and I go and talk to so many different groups of kids. Man, a lot of students, and you probably know this as well, man, even though they go to school all these years, man, they have, family that kind of talk to them, they still really don't know what they want to do, man. They don't. There's no clear direction. And so I think that's why I started a scholarship. And even if a student um, changed their major, they were able to, have some financial support, and then also know that they could call me and get some mentorship throughout whatever the collegiate path they take. Because I know it's difficult. I don't care what degree you're going to. I tell people, they say it's college. So I don't care what degree you're going to. College is not easy,
It
and
isn't.
so um, that's why I think it just kind of brings it back to um, what people really want to do in life, but they really, have to have some direction. And so our young people, they're looking. There's so many other factors around them, and so that's why I just always try to remain a good role model for young people. Again, I'm not perfect, but I try to, especially when I'm around young people, just to show them that um, this is who I am. This is where I'm from, right here in Port Arthur. This is where I've gotten, not by myself, but I've gotten here by hard work and dedication, and you can do the very same thing.
Leading by example. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not overrated. It's not a cliche word. I mean, we try to use it, but when you actually show it, it's like, no, this is looking. Hey, I grew up several blocks away from you guys, so, and I didn't even know I was going into this industry, but I didn't let that deter me from growing into who I am today. And it seems like you recognize that early, like, hey, I have certain things, I have certain goals, I have certain accomplishments, and it also sounds like you had a pretty good support system as far as I could tell. How was your support system through all these different things you were going through as an adult?
Man, my parents, my mom and dad, are, our strength and all this, um, and growing up, Again, the oldest of 6 growing up. My grandparents, they played a pivotal part in just building the foundation, and that's why I always kind of go back to the foundation is so important. Again,
Mm.
somebody can say that's cliche, but man, it is so true that you build a strong foundation that would help support you. And so, giving your kids the tools to be successful is important. I have 2 daughters, 14 and 13, and I have a son that's 16 months. You may hear him periodically through this podcast because
Let
he's
him ride.
but it's so important to to make sure that you have a foundation, and so that's why. So grandparents, my parents, and then it was funny, man. Me and my siblings, we take sibling trips now, and we got to talking one day, and was saying, they was telling me how much they appreciated me, like they're like, Chris, you don't know, but we appreciate everything you're doing. I'm like, oh man, y'all never told me that when I wanted to hear it, but but I appreciated them, and so man, we didn't grow up. Man, my mom, she worked several jobs, man, and my dad, he did his best to help where he could, and and things got better as we got older, but definitely didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, man, and uh, but all those instances growing up and through early adulthood and now it's just come kind of full circle and just kind of helped me build that foundation. It's kind of helped me be the man that I am today, man. And
And
I'm
you're right.
appreciative.
Yeah. And you could tell your appreciation, and you didn't just allow that appreciation to settle. You actually, like you said, when you created the scholarship program in 2015, that was one of the things you wanted. You're like, you know what? If I can now lead other high school seniors to at least a college program, I can allow them to have another foundation. And you're right. A lot of it starts with situation. It starts with people like you that are thinking like, you know what can I do to give back to my community?
Absolutely, man. And so we didn't stop there, man. Somebody was like, man, you're always doing something. I'm like, I just feel like I gotta keep on doing something. I don't know. My wife be
Keep
getting
doing
mad
it.
times. She's like, well, take a break. I'm like, I don't know, baby. I'm just can't keep rolling with it. But even in that same year, man, I started this Christmas toy drive. It's called Christmas with the Constable, and we've been doing it since in 2015. And I partner with the Salvation Army, and we do this big toy drive, and it's free of charge. I just ask people to bring 2 toys to come in, and um, we have free food, gumbo. It's really good. And then I have invite different singing groups to come across and sing different Christmas, music or not. And then again, I use my talents of singing, and I do like a little mini concert for the people, and it's grown so much over the years, and we've been able to help thousands of families just through that toy drive. And so doing things like that, or even I think 6 years ago now, I started a junior deputy camp, and I invite all the different law enforcement agencies to come out, and it's a day camp, a 1 day camp, and they get to interact with K9, the SWAT truck. This year I had the helicopter from the sheriff's office, fire truck, the ambulance from Acadian,
Everything.
police cars. We have it all out, free food, free breakfast. We have to help promote health and fitness. We have one of my friends puts together this little mini obstacle course that they always get a joy out of me running every year, and I can barely make it this year, but I'm better. I'm going into training, but all these, doing that camp, doing the toy drive, man, just to it's hard work putting on any program, but just to see the smiling faces from the kids from the camp, or being able to see the families that's being beneficial from the toy drive, those are the things that really keep me going. And even at the times when I feel like I'm real tired, man, I just get that little burst of energy to kind of keep on going on, man.
And because of all the things you've been doing, everything that's been accumulating over the last nearly decade of your fundraisers and the different programs, you actually honored in a certain way nationally. And I made a mistake thinking that it was just locally. Like I thought you got a Beaumont Award, and we actually talked about it in the green room. I was like, My bad. I thought that's someone that I thought Jefferson County just gave you this because you're a good guy. I didn't know, but you actually won a national award. Tell us about this national award and how it came about.
Yeah, man. So I'm really excited about that. I'll go back in 2017. I'm a member and now the president of the Justice of the Peace and Constables Association of Texas, and I'm actually honored to be the president of it's the largest organization of the most county elected officials in Texas. And I'm actually in the 70-year hit. I'm the first black president to serve in 79 years, and
Congrats.
and so it's just a blessing to serve. But then that organization named me Texas Constable of the Year in 2017. And then after that, I joined the National Organization Association of Constables and Marshals. And like you were saying, this year, man, in Biloxi, Mississippi, at our 50th annual convention, they named me National Constable of the Year. And so there's constables and marshals all over the state, all over this United States. And I'm just humbled enough that they thought a little old Chris Bates to serve as a national constable. So, but again, I didn't get there by the things that Chris was doing. I couldn't do it by myself. Trust me, I'm not that smart. I needed some help from people, community, support, family support, and so that's what has allowed me to receive that honor and many others that I've received in my tenure.
And it's important to understand that when you do right, you serve, you care, you give, things come from it. Not saying that you wanted this to come about, but
Right.
it came about because you're doing the right stuff. Like you're supporting your community, you're supporting your family, you're supporting yourself. You're doing all the things you should be doing to help elevate everything that's around you. And from I didn't know you had all these things going on. I was like, man, you could have probably won this 3 years in a row just based on what you have going on. Because a lot of us, even me, back when I was a police officer, I was just happy to get my 4 10-hour shifts and call it a day. I wasn't trying to do toy drives. I wasn't trying to have Christmas cards for anybody. I mean, I was just trying to figure out how not to get stuck on the shift for 2 shifts in a row. That's all what things I was doing. So you've maximized your time and you're doing it effectively. And I think that the fact that you're giving so much, the award is they found the right person. And the good part about it, it doesn't seem like you're slowing down anytime soon. So when you see this award, what do you think about next? Because you're a forward thinker, and I know you say you're not the smartest, but I think you're a lot smarter than what you give yourself credit for, and the heart and passion is there. So when you see this particular award, you give out your kudos to everybody. What do you see is going to be next in your horizon?
Man, I get asked that question a whole lot, man, and it's hard. This position as constable is political. I mean, uh, I have I have to I have to run for this position every 4 years. Yeah, so um, that's one thing about this job is that you just never know, and so you have to always be prepared. Um, because at the end of the day, this is my job, this is my livelihood, and people vote, and anybody can run against me. That's this comes with the territory. But this position, I feel like I will continue to be in this what we call this political arena, this atmosphere. Um, I get asked about so many other positions, what you running for next, and this, that, and other. And so it's really hard for me to tell because I just don't know. When I pray, and I'm born and raised in the church, man, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's where my faith, my religion is, and um, but when I pray and I ask, it hasn't been a clear direction just yet of what's the next for Chris Bates. But what I do hear is God telling me to build a foundation that's going to be strong enough for you to handle what I'm going to put on your slab.
Yeah.
And so, okay, God, I hear you saying that, and so that's why I do all the things that I do. I'm passionate about doing those, but I'm just getting ready for whatever God is gonna put on bring my way, and so I don't think that He will prepare me for something that I'm not ready for. And so that's what I'm like I said, I don't know the direct path, but I know something is coming. And
You know
I
it's
know
there.
it. Oh, trust me.
Yeah, and something will everything, because I definitely see you on a certain trajectory myself, and I've been now in this law enforcement game for 18 years, multiple agencies, and obviously I can project, and I'm sure other people have already projected just verbally to you what they see that you can do. And I think anything that's put on your plate by God that you can definitely do. There's no doubt in my mind that you definitely can handle everything. But it's going to be by your choice as well.
Right.
I never tell people to get in something that they're not ready for, their family's not ready for, because
Right.
the more you take on, the more you're going to have to give up something, because we all only have a certain amount of time in the day. Like nobody, no matter how great you are, you only have 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week, like 572 hours in a month. You only have this set time, so you can add to it. So whatever it is, it's definitely going to be something that you're going to have to make sure that you're ready time wise as well.
Absolutely, man. You said it right there, my brother. You was preaching right there to me actually, because you know, um, even in my constable position, man, I do so much stuff, and I take my breaks. Don't get me wrong, I take my breaks, and I make sure that I have time for family. But I do more um, than an average person.
You do.
It does take a lot of time. Um, and then sometimes, like I said, I just have to take my breaks. And my mom told me when I first got it, kind of rolling, she's like, Chris, people gonna want you here. You got a good heart, and you gonna and you owe it to people to do, and help where you can. But she said, Chris, sometimes you're gonna have to say no,
Yeah.
because you just do it all because family young and I like to sleep as well, so I want to get my but like I said, and I think I'm in a routine now where I go, 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 and I have my certain breaks that I know I'm gonna take, and so it's very understandable. But like you said, it's you only got 24 hours in a day, and at some point, sacrifices will be made, and so that's the other part of it is that a lot of things, I make sacrifices to get things done, not only for my family but my extended family, who is the community that I serve.
And we need to finally get to this part because we brushed on it very lightly, and we said we were going to talk about it. Tell us what a constable does, because I have an idea, but I really don't know. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody knows besides people that are actually constables.
Man, look, hopefully the people that I've been, every time I have an audience, I ask the first, I don't care what people ask me to speak about. The first question I ask is, who can tell me what a constable does? And I get a few hands, but it was something that I had to learn. When I ran for office, decided to run in 2011, and and people were like, when you running for constable? I'm like, what is a constable? I had to do my own homework to make sure I knew what I was running for. But the constable actually is we're it's the oldest law enforcement agency in Texas, and so we are actually this year celebrating the 200-year anniversary of constables in the state of
Wow.
Texas. Before sheriffs, and we have much respect for sheriffs, but the constable was the first law enforcement agency in Texas. The constables are constitutionally made position, elected position. As I said, a head constable runs every 4 years. And our primary duty is to bailiff the courts, primarily the justice of the peace court, and then serve the civil process for the different courts and outside courts. And when I say civil process, that primarily means when people are getting sued, they
Mhm.
have for small claims, we'll get documents from the court to go and find those individuals that have been sued and let them know that they have a court hearing. People that have are be going through evictions, the plaintiff files in the JP court, and we go find those individuals and let them know they have court. We sometimes hold auctions for individuals that have been sued and they cannot pay, and so the plaintiff can levy or take property that is that's if it's a second house or many of they have other cars, we can seize that property and we can sell it in the auction to help satisfy that judgment.
Wow.
That's the person. We deal with CPS a lot. Sometimes we have to take kids from one guardian and bring them to another household, depending on that. So we work with CPS, and then we also work with the Attorney General's office a lot. We have a lot of AG's papers, child support, community supervision paperwork, and we making sure that we get those documents to the different parties that's named in these lawsuits, and on top of all the civil stuff we do, and we do all the criminal aspect of the traffic laws, criminal investigations, anything that the CCP or the penal code says, we do all those things as well. So I kind of call it the best of both worlds, but it's a great responsibility. I feel like as being a constable, it's different than any other law enforcement agency that I've worked for. The only agency that is similar to it that can do civil process as well is the sheriff's office. Now there's private process servers, but the law states that only the sheriff and the constable can do the civil process in its entirety. And so in Jefferson County, the constables do all the civil process. The sheriff has elected to just patrol the county, outland county areas, manage the jail, manage the bail bonds board, and so we do all the civil work again, in addition to all the criminal stuff. So it takes a lot of specialized training, man. Again, being the president of our association, I see it firsthand, and I be on our education committee for the state, helping develop the curriculum for every constable and deputy constable in the state. And so it's a lot of different work that you wouldn't see working as a patrolman on the municipality. And but I'm grateful to be able to explain to people what we do, and then also help provide the best training that we can for constables and deputies across the state.
200 years. That is a lot longer than I didn't think you were going to say that number. To be honest with you, when you said it, I was like, that's 200. That's a lot of years.
Yeah, man. The constable has been around even further than that, man. Back in the late 1700s, in where it originated in England, and it was one of the first law enforcement agencies, even in England. And it got its way to the United States, primarily in Texas. And then we have constables again all across these states, and I meet people through our national conference, and everyone's duties are differently. But it's a very unique job. It's a very rewarding job. And it's a job that honestly, just going back to our original conversation, I never really thought I would be doing. But it's worked for me. It's just something that I feel like I helped this constable position and just kind of bring some understanding to it a little bit better for our community, to make sure that people understand and respect what we do as constables. And so I'm just grateful to continue to serve, man. And so hopefully somebody got a little quiz out of it or something. They can go back and understand. Because another question I get is, can constables pull people over? Can they write traffic tickets? And I'm like, yes, we can.
Yeah.
So, but it's always, I love enjoying educating people on what we do, and they always get a joy out of it because a lot of people do not know. But again, 200 years, man, and I don't know if you ever heard this, but the word cop. A lot of people, some people may feel different about it, but if you Google it and you do a little research, man, back in the day, the word cop actually stands for constable on patrol.
Wow.
And so it's one of the original law enforcement agencies, and from my studies and research, the word cop is what we all call the cops. It really means constable on patrol.
That means a constable is really coming out, a police officer or a deputy sheriff. That's who they need. That's who they expect to see now. You're gonna be people looking. They're gonna listen to the show. I'm like, huh. You're gonna have this Google and Wikipedia just going crazy after this show, because they're like, oh, we didn't know that. I never heard that before. I knew it came from something. I just didn't know how it correlated with like constables versus police officer. I I vaguely remember someone mentioning it, but not that in particular.
Yeah, yeah, man, and it's a lot of deep history, and that's one of the things. I'm a history buff, man. I love history, and so whether it's just kind of randomly just googling things, or if me doing this in this position, man, I want to make sure that I knew what I was the history of it. And so I have books and stuff that I've read and gotten, and but it's a rich history, especially in Texas, and we're real proud to be celebrating 200 years of the Constable in Texas, man. We actually had a House resolution read on the floor of this session, acknowledging Texas constables in 200 years, and we were all there and acknowledged, and from our Speaker of the House and everyone. And so it's a great feeling. We have over 600, and I think we're at 671 constables
Wow.
in the state of Texas now, and everyone is different. Everyone is different. So again, being able to have a direct link to those individuals by serving as the president of the association is even a greater honor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Being number one, so to speak, out of 671, that's amazing. And that definitely shows the dedication that you have to your position. I think that's important whenever anybody's trying to master anything, to say, hey, you do your homework, you work hard, you will get there over time. It may take time, but it's definitely
Yeah.
there.
Oh
Now,
yeah. So,
I have a question for you. And this will be one of the few last couple of questions I ask. And it's not a question I typically ask, but I think you can handle it. What motivates you each day to put that uniform on?
man, every day, being able to go out in the community, um, and meet people that first off I've never met, um, don't know their situation, don't know their story, and being able to just help somebody just randomly, has been just the joy of doing this job. Again, you have to have some patience. You really do. But for me, it's being able. I can remember even when school. When I was a little kid, I always want to be the in class, be the teacher's pet, so to speak, and help pass out papers and stuff like that. And so, I think it's just genuinely something for me that has helped me just be able to love this job the way I love it. Because people ask me all the time, "Man, you like your job?" And I'm like, "No, I don't like my job. I love my job."
Yeah.
And so it's rewarding the fact that I can go out each and every day and help somebody, um, even whether I run into them or the many messages I get when people ask for help. Phone calls. I try to get to them all. I'm good to have a great staff that works for me. I have my chief deputy and my lieutenant that works for me, and they help run the office along with my chief clerks and my clerk. And so just being able to put this uniform on every day, knowing I can help people, or even when I go into a school, like one of our elementary schools, and little kids, they want to give you high five and stuff like that. Man, that means the world to me. Just, man, oh, that's a cop or whatever, man. And so, but they looking up, they're seeing something, they're seeing the officer in a different light, and being able to do that and be a part of that change is so important to me. And so that's why I put the uniform on, because I know, little by little we're gonna make the changes that we need to make.
Yeah, and we need people like you in the community. We need people like you in the industry that are always understanding the purpose of why you're there. You're there
Right.
to help people out. You're there to help make people better. That's what you put the uniform on. And sometimes I think we lose that because of
Yeah.
all of the external noises we have going on around us. We get
Mm.
distracted and then we forget our purpose. We forget our calling. And then we find ourselves frustrated. We find
Yeah.
ourselves disappointed. We find ourselves angry because we thought that it was society's job to help us fulfill our calling. Well, no, we're putting that uniform on because we want to. We want to
Right.
go out there and make a difference.
Absolutely, man. And there's a lot of differences to be made, man. That's
Mhm.
in every community, Sometimes people want to pick on Beaumont or pick on Port Arthur about, who's having the most, the crime here is bad or the crime here is bad. Or, man, let me tell you, man, there's crime everywhere. Trust me.
It
You
is.
may not know it. That goes back to our other conversation about what you don't know what's happening around you. There's a lot of things that happen around you. Um, but be a part of the solution. It's good. It's one thing to talk about it, but what are you doing to be a part of the solution to help deter crime, or or help break what I call generational curses? We can have 1,000 officers in the street, but that's not going to stop the things that are happening as far as people breaking the law if we're not started at the root. And that's why I do a lot of youth programs, because we have to start at the root cause of it and help build young people to be great productive citizens. And so it takes all of us to work together to do this thing, and working together as a community. And so again, and I and there's not one thing that I've been able to do by myself. Everything that I've been able to do is because of the community support, family support, and support from the man above. And so that's why I give all glory to.
Yeah, and understanding the support's out there. We all have a support system somewhere. You just have to recognize it and go with it. And I think that's where we struggle too, is we're like, well, it's us against the world. No, it's not. You just have to find that right support system to help build you up.
Absolutely, man. And it's out there, man. And so if we can tap into it, um, that's going to be the most important piece of it. Just tapping into it. You'd be surprised, man, if anyone is in law enforcement and they're seeing or they're looking to get into law enforcement, have the support of your community, and just like you said, just kind of identify that, and you'll be surprised how much easier the job can be. It's not an easy job, but having that support to do the job is going to make it a whole lot better.
Yeah, it is. And it will take away some of that stress, because you're going to face the stress no matter what. Like,
Oh
there's
yeah,
no running from it. There's no hiding from it. If you're working graveyard shifts in Port Arthur, we already know what time it is. You're going to see something. I mean, working day shift in the west end of Beaumont, working wherever you're at, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference. You're still going to feel something, and you just have to have those different pieces in place when the cookies
right.
crumble.
Oh yeah, because you're right. It's gonna crumble. It's definitely gonna crumble, and training is so important as well.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that you can fall back on it, um, and then just doing this job and know what you're doing, understanding even your policies in your department or whatnot is going to help. One of my training officers, when I was in FTO, when I was in training, he drove and he made me read the full policy manual the whole time. And I'm like, man, why is he doing this to me? I want to get out there and fight crime. He's like, man, you can't do without knowing what this policy says, the do's and don'ts of it. And I'm like, man, you know what? You're right. Later on, I realized that was the best training I ever got, is making sure that I knew my policies. And because it's the same in any job that you do, man. You want to do your job, but you have things you can do and things you can't, not supposed to do. And so um, just being able to have those things in place will help me grow. And I tell other people that um, just being a scientist of the job that you're trying to do is going to definitely help you um, in the long run in any profession, especially in law enforcement, because it's ever changing as well, man. It's law enforcement. I started 15 years ago is not the same as it was 15 years ago, and now I'm sounding like one of these old seasoned officers, but uh, times have changed even at that time. Technology has changed for law enforcement, and so it's so different. But we have to adapt, and I think those changes will help us um, be a profession that people truly, truly respect, but not only respect, but people understand. And I think that's where we miss it, is that we don't educate as much, and then it's not that people don't respect officers or law enforcement, they just don't understand. And so we have to help them understand. I think that's where we have to make this connection finally.
Yeah, and you're right. Just giving knowledge, letting people know what we truly do. Like, you're educating us on what a constable does. I mean, just not just seeing a constable on the side of the car, like, oh, here comes another deputy sheriff. Well, no, that's a whole nother, that's not a deputy sheriff. That's somebody completely different. And this is what they do. They deal with civil process. They deal with things that the sheriff doesn't want to do. But the education side of giving people help, I think that's what lowers frustration and confusion, just by telling people what they think they know, but actually letting them know the facts.
Right. And then and like you said, man, people will think they know, or they base their decisions off of what other people have done, or whatever. And so, I mean, there's a lot of times, and then it's also just kind of situational, because something can happen in law enforcement on the other side of the country, and people put it in that perspective. But I told people all the time, I said, change the caveat and insert Chris Bates in there. And most of these people respect me, and they were like, well, you wouldn't do those things, or you would do it this way or whatever. I said, but you never know. I said, because I have to be in a situation where I protect myself, others around me, and I want to go home at night. And so when they start putting in that perspective, well, if you would have did it, I said, well, man, people don't wake up. Officers, in my honest opinion, man, officers, and the vast majority of officers don't wake up and say how they can harm a person, man. They wake up.
Correct. They don't
want to help a person. Now, we human again, man. We talked about that, and so we may be having a bad day, but at the end of the day, I honestly believe that people in this profession truly want to help folks. But again, we have to get to a point to where people are understanding what we do, why we do certain things. There's some bad apples out there. I was talking to someone earlier about, or the other day about, there's bad apples in every profession, and there's some bad apples in law enforcement. Don't get me wrong. And I acknowledge that, and I tell them to go home quick, fast, in a hurry. But the vast majority of people that put on this badge, put on this uniform, they want to help folks, man. And so we just have to help everyone understand why things happen, and then understand actually the part that happens after the arrest and to the criminal justice system, and then things kind of get a little daisy when you get into the criminal justice system, because you have so many facets, judges and this, that, and other, and DAs, and all that stuff is different, how things are prosecuted or whatever, and it's a whole nother situation that has to be explained as well. Why bonds are set this way, or why, it's so many different things. And I think people just want to have they have one question. They think there's one answer to that one question. And it doesn't work like that in law enforcement.
It doesn't.
It never will. Trust me. And so that's why we have to continue educating people as much as they want to be educated, to help us fully understand what law enforcement really means.
Yeah. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head. You're definitely, addressing things that we should be addressing on a consistent basis, just through education, information delivery, like all the stuff that we should be doing. And sometimes we forget because we get lost in the mix. And then once again, we want to judge people by their lack of knowledge. And then we want them to give us the benefit of the doubt of something we did. Like you said, it's what would Chris Bates do in California? Well, Chris Bates isn't in California. How can he tell you what he would do? Like I'm with you. Like people have asked me before, family members, friends, like, hey, you saw what happened in Memphis. You saw what happened in Minnesota. You see what happened in whatever other state or city. I'm just like, yeah. It's like, well, what would you have done? I said, I don't know. I said, I said, tell me what happened to the officer all day. They was like, what? Well, I mean, I'm just like, tell me what's going on with that officer's life. Did he have a fight with his wife? Is his kid sick? Is he just a bad person? I really don't know. So how can I judge him without knowing all the factors? And I think as a good law enforcement officer, you start to realize you have to understand perspective. And I think that kind of in our industry, that's kind of what we have to have, because we go to scenes not knowing nothing. And then within 30 minutes, we have to make a life-changing decision for them. So we have to be able to evaluate all the factors very quickly. So usually when people are not in law enforcement, they ask me those certain questions. I'm with you, Chris. I'm like, I mean, I could tell you what I think I would do, But how do I really know unless I'm in that person's shoes in the moment dealing with it?
Right, right. And it's so hard to really dictate that, and like you said, judging that. And so, I mean, I try to get the facts. There's different things people ask me about, like you said, and I try to get the facts, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I wasn't there. And
Mm-hmm.
so even the facts that I believe I have is from another source, and so I mean, it's really hard. And so everyone, like I said, this job is a specialized job, man. And I think when we are to a point to where we can continue, um, and this is very cliche, but continue doing community policing, um, and just help, and showing people where they're at. I love that people go to the Citizens Police Academy, just
Mm-hmm.
trying to help, help their understanding of what's happening. And we have it here in Jefferson County. Actually, there's a joint Citizens Police Academy between all the agencies, and so it's it's some work. It's not gonna ever be perfect, man. It's just not. And I'm not saying that just to kind of brush it off, but I'm saying that it's not a problem that you and I will be able to fix, or even just the citizen looking in. It's a problem that we are going to have to eventually come together
Yes.
and listen. Sometimes agree to disagree, and then try to make the best of it where we can. And so, like I said, once we get into like the criminal justice system, then people can say where it's fair, not fair, whatever. But from law enforcement aspect of it, the first person into that situation,
Mhm.
um, we're trying to get there, and I think we're making strides in our each prospective communities. Um, but again, it's just going to take some time, some transparency, um, and we're going to continue working to make everything better. But it's going to take officers really having patience and trying to help educate and help people understand, and look at it from their perspective as well. Sometimes we get so locked in from our law enforcement perspective, my 15-year perspective in law enforcement,
Mhm.
and not realize that this person has never spent a day in law enforcement, so they don't know. And so we have to kind of take it back a little bit and be like, you know what, let me try to explain what's happening to the best of my knowledge, best of my ability, and so help them to have a better understanding of why we do the things we do.
And that just, like you said, it comes with time. It comes with effort. There's not one magical solution for it. It's not a magic pill. It's not, I can just do it by myself. You can't do it by yourself. The
Right.
citizen that thinks they can do it by themselves, it's a group effort. And it's a good thing because as we address these concerns, as we realize some of the things that are going on in law enforcement, in and out, it's good to know that it's a community effort. Like you said, community policing, I mean, back in my day was a term we used as well. And for me as a rookie officer, I was like, oh, community policing, I ain't going to that meeting. But as I've gotten older and more
Yeah.
seasoned, I realized that no, I need their help as much as they need mine,
Right.
especially when we're trying to bridge that gap and make all the ties together. So for me, I agree with everything you said on that point. And I definitely side, hey, education, knowledge, delivering data, everything is important. So I'm not going to keep you too much longer because I hear your baby out there yelling for you, which
Oh
is
man.
cool. Which is cool though, because like I said, that's the cool part about podcasts and technology. And I always tell people we have these unscripted conversations, and I don't want you to remove your baby from the background. I like it because it's real. I mean, you're a human. You have kids. Like people are just like, if they're like, oh, I can't believe he has a baby in the background. Well, don't, if you don't have kids, then you probably wouldn't either. But anybody that's had a 16-month-old baby anywhere in their general vicinity, there's no controlling that baby. Now, 16 years old, you can be quiet. 16 months, they are just on their own. So I love
Yeah.
it that your baby's in the background. If my son was here, he would probably be trying to sneak in and he's all over the place. But
Yeah.
it's real. This is real.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is real law enforcement talk. This is reality. This ain't a just a studio production where we're over in like a isolated area of the city or isolated part of the country where we're just like not around people. This is real stuff. This is real lives. This is why I love this show, because people hear raw information and they get a lot of our surroundings. And I think that's important because we're human, and I want people to understand that. Like, it ain't just a shell. That uniform you have on right now, Chris, it's not a shell. There's somebody that had to put it on. There's a person in there. And when we start looking at everything, this is what it's about. So to keep your baby going, I don't want your wife to be mad at me either. So as we start to round it out, where can people find you? You have all this stuff going on, Chris. You have fundraisers, scholarships, constables. You're all over it. If somebody was saying, you know what, Chris, we heard you on the LEO First podcast, and we wanted to bring you out to speak to our people, or we want to get involved in some of your programs, how do we reach you?
Yeah, so I keep a lot of information. I put a lot of information out on my social media platforms. There's Facebook, of course. You just I have a personal page, and I have my work page. And so if you just type in Christopher Bates or Constable Christopher Bates, those things will pop up. Even the same in LinkedIn and on Instagram is Constable Chris at 1906. And then if anyone wants to send out information, or ask me to come on, or whatever the case may be, we do have our Jefferson County website, and on that page you'll see a big old tab that says Constables, and I'm the Constable of Precinct 2. And so if you click that tab, it'll bring you to our home page, and you'll be able to send me emails. My phone number is there where you can make phone calls in. So the office phone number is on there. But anything to recommend, I check my emails. I don't know how some people live without emails, but email, okay. And so my email address is christopher.bates@jeffcotexas.us. And I can be reached there, man. Like I said, I get a lot of messages. I got a lot of emails and phone calls. And so one of my things that I pride myself on is making sure that I get back to people in a timely manner. Um, um, and doing this job, and I had situations that helped me make sure that I respond back to messages and emails. And like I said, I've always been that type of person, but there was one time I forgot to respond back or make a call, and I seen this person that called me in my office, and I never respond back to them. And man, did they get on my tail about not responding back. So I'm like, boy, before I go out anywhere, if I go to a football game, whatever, I make sure all my emails are responded to, all my messages, all my DMs, everything. Because one thing you don't want people to say is that, man, you didn't call me back. You know,
And they will say that.
Yeah, so all those avenues, man, like I said, I'm not hard to find. But anything that I can do to help, um, I'm there, man. Like I said, this is something that I love to do, and so just being involved and engaged is something that I will continue to do. And so again, I don't make it hard for people to get in contact with me.
Perfect. And as we close out completely, what final words do you want to share with the audience?
Well, I just wanted to say again, thank you, Mike, for allowing me to come on this podcast, man. I had a really good time tonight talking about this, and it's good just to kind of talk some things. This is kind of like therapy for me, just being able to talk candidly. I know other people will hear it, and but like you said, it just lets people know that I don't sleep in this uniform. Is
You look sharp in it, though.
I do, thank you, but I do have regular clothes, and and so, I come home and, I try to bathe the kid, and right now he's giving my wife the blues, and we're just normal, regular people, just trying to do a good cause. And so, I just want people to know that I want people to find their passionate place in their community. You don't have to do what Chris Bates do, but I would love to have people just, if everyone just did their one little special thing that they love to do, man, this community, that you, whether it's here or wherever you stay at, where you're listening, if you can just everybody just did their own little passionate thing, man, we'll have a much better community, much better state, nation, people working together. And so I believe we're going to get there one of these days. And not saying you have to agree with everybody, but if we're helping one another, we're loving on people, and we're just being just a community beacon of hope and light. I think that everything is gonna be all right. And so that's one of my things is just helping folks. But we need everybody on board to do some helping, man. And so there's a lot of help that a lot of things that need help around your community, but just find what's passionate about you, and I promise you, you'll start seeing the change that needs to be made.
You guys have heard it, and gals, you gals have heard it as well. If you want to find Chris, you got multiple social media platforms. You got the Jefferson County website, Precinct 2. You got his email address that he put out there. But ultimately, he wants you to make sure that you're following your passion and also delivering it to people around you. If you're good at something or you're passionate about something, don't hold on to it. Like, share it, because you never know what kind of beacon of hope you can be for somebody else. What one little thing that you think is minuscule may be a life-changing opportunity for somebody else. So, like Chris said, get out there, follow what you're good at, give back to your community, give back to yourself, and ultimately you're going to see that change over time that we all want and need. Guys and
Absolutely.
gals. Yeah, Chris, I mean, you said it perfectly. I mean, it's one of those things that when we look at it, it's like, this is the way we should be thinking. We should be thinking, how do we build others? Because once again, you've done a lot. You've done a lot of community stuff, and I think you've said it to great extent in this show. And the fact that we're able to give back and see those dividends are going to pay off in the long run. So, guys, you've heard it from Chris. You heard some of the stuff that he's been doing. Get involved if you're thinking about reaching out to him. If you want to donate, if you want to participate, whatever it is, you know
Absolutely.
where his heart's at, because he's ready for it. He wants you guys to come out and support, because he knows the impact that he's having, because he's creating that foundation and he's leaving that legacy. Guys, thank you for viewing this podcast, whether you're watching the video right now or you're going to listen to the audio in your car, your squad car, wherever it might be. But we thank each of you for taking the time out tonight, today, whenever time it is that you listen to, and thinking about ways you can contribute to your community, because we know what happens when we're all together trying to build this up. Thank you guys again. Chris, thank you for being on. Thank you for taking the time, because I know you're busy, and now the baby's quiet. I don't know why. Maybe the baby heard us closing out, but hey, let the baby know you coming with it. So, well, all the stuff that he's been giving the wife, tell him, hey, Dad's on his way.
I'm on the way.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in. You guys have a great day, a great night, and continue pushing forward.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaelalaidler.com and hit the website at michaelalaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.